Hello everyone! Today we are going to be making a quick, easy, and inexpensive Victorian petticoat to go over our new 1850s crinoline. This is a great way to make petticoats. It's super adaptable, so all you have to do is adjust the length at the waist to fit over whatever skirt supports you're making. And it's also inexpensive because I'm going to be using a 36-inch wide cotton muslin from Joann's that runs about $1.99 a yard, and that you can often get with a 50% off coupon for about $1 a yard. So without further ado, let's get started. Here are the measurements you'll need for your petticoat. First, the length from your waist to the bottom of your crinoline, plus 2 or 3 inches. You can make your petticoat a little longer than this if you want, but you'll want it a little shorter than floor length so it doesn't show at the hem of your skirt. My crinoline is 35 inches long, so I'm going for a petticoat that's around 37 or 38 inches. We're going to have a 15-inch flounce at the bottom of our petticoat, so subtract 14 from your overall length to figure out how long the main skirt panels will be. We're subtracting 14 and not 15 to account for seam allowances. For this petticoat, I'm using an inexpensive cotton muslin from Joann's that's 36 inches wide. Since my crinoline is 135 inches at its largest circumference, I'll need at least 4 skirt panels to make it all the way around. But that won't give me a very full skirt, so I'm going to add 2 more panels for volume for a total of 6 panels. To get a nice full flounce, I'm going to use double the number of panels that are in the body of the skirt, so 12 flounce panels in all. For my petticoat, the skirt panels are 24 inches long and my flounces are 15 inches. Accounting for the hem and seam allowances, I'll end up with a total skirt length around 37 inches. The first step to assembling your petticoat is to sew all the skirt panels together along the selvages to create one large open sheet. We'll leave the last seam open for now. Next, we're going to sew all of our flounce panels together along the selvages, again leaving the last seam open. Now comes the long, tedious part. We have to hem our flounce. Since our flounce is around 12 yards long, this takes approximately 97 years. Alright, now that we've got our hem done, we can now begin the equally tedious task of gathering the opposite edge of our ruffle, which will also take approximately 84 years.
One eternity later.
Alright, the next part's going to be a little bit fiddly, but not terribly so. What we're going to do is you're going to need a large space, and you're going to want to lay out your skirt panels right side up. And then you're going to take your flounces and lay them, whoops, beneath that end. Nope. Do need this end. And then you're gonna lay your flounce right side down so that they're right, these two things are right side together. Sir, you're gonna have 2 widths of fabric in each flounce for every 1 skirt panel. So what you can do is you can go over 1, 2, and then match that up with the seam on your skirt panel and then pin that in place. And then you should have a crease where your fabric was folded in half on the bolt, and you can match the other seam in your flounce to that crease and pin that there. Okay, so once we have our spots matched up, we can go ahead and we can gather the panel to fit into its little space here. So that's the end. Just gonna pin that in place. And then you'll just want to adjust the gathers so that they're even across the whole panel. As long as they're pretty even, there aren't any like huge lumps, then we should be good to go. Ooh, focus. And then once that's all evened out, we can go ahead and pin our flounce in place so it doesn't move around. standing. You're standing on my flounce. Oh, yeah. Okie dokie, I have now pinned the entire flounce to the bottom edge of the petticoat body. Pepper has been doing a good job of holding everything in place. So now we're going to go and we're going to stitch the flounce down to the petticoat. Now I can go ahead and gather the top of the skirt into the waistband, and we will finally be finishing this flounce petticoat and then actually start making clothes instead of just undergarments. What an idea. The waistband is a two-piece waistband made of 2 strips of fabric, each of them 3 inches wide and as long as my waist measurement minus a couple of inches. Since the petticoat has 6 panels, I divided the waistband by 6 and marked each place with a pin where a seam would match up. Okay, so now I have my waistband all divided into 6 pieces to match the 6 panels of the petticoat. And now comes the task of gathering each panel into that little sliver. In my case, 6 3/4 inches. So 36 inches is about to get compressed down into literally a sixth of that. So we're going to match the seams up to the points that we figured out on our waistbands and pin those down and then gather everything up in between them so we'll have nice even gathers. You can see here how tight those gathers are actually going to be because we are compressing so much fabric down into our waistband. That's one of the reasons I like this more inexpensive muslin, is because it's a lighter weight fabric, it's a little bit thinner. It's easier to get all of that, all of this, to fit into this space. You can use a higher quality muslin. I certainly wouldn't discourage you from using a better fabric, but there are advantages sometimes to just cheaper, thinner fabrics. Okay, now that we have finally gathered our skirt top onto our waistband, it is time to stitch it all down. Now we still have our one seam left open. We're gonna close that in just a minute, but right now we're just gonna stitch the skirt onto the waistband. All right, so now that we have our skirt sewn onto the first piece of our waistband, I'm going to be making a 2-part waistband. You don't have to do it this way. You can cut out a strip of fabric that's wide enough to be doubled over, but since I'm using scraps, I am doing the 2-piece waistband, which means I'm going to pin the second part onto the part that is attached to the skirt, going right sides together. And then I'm just gonna stitch these two together, turn it to the inside, turn under my raw edge, and I'm going to stitch that down. So that will finish off the waist of our skirt. I just spoke to myself with a pen. I'm going to leave this edge open. I'm not gonna finish this just yet because I'm gonna add some tapes in here so I can tie the waistband closed. So first we're gonna have to finish off this waistband and then we'll add the tapes. So before I start sewing this, I'm actually going to leave about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch free, so that when I add the tapes, I can turn under this raw edge and stitch it down and have that nice finished edge. So right now I'm just gonna leave about this much free and then stitch down the rest of the waistband. Now it's finally time to close up the back seam that we left open. I always start by matching the flounce seams on either side so they line up, and then pinning the rest of the petticoat closed. About 8 inches is left open at the top edge to make it easier when getting dressed. So for these edges that we left right at the skirt opening, we're going to turn these in by very, very little. It's going to be like a 1/4 inch, and then another 1/4 inch. And then we're going to pin that in place. We're going to do this all down the length of our opening just to finish off that opening. And then when we get up here to our waistband, we can turn under the raw edges. There we go. You can see that's all tucked in. And then before we pin that closed, I'm just going to take a bit of twill tape. This is left over from making the crinoline, so I think this is about maybe 15 inches. And then I'm just going to tuck that in to the end of the waistband. And we can pin that in place. And then when we stitch the whole length of the opening, that twill tape will be in the back of the waistband, and it'll be nice and secure in our stitches. Well, there we have it. This is our finished petticoat. It's nice and fluffy. It's gonna cover all the bones of our crinoline so they don't show through to our skirts. And it's just fun. It's so floofy. So much floof. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to hit that like button below. And if you want to see more sewing adventures, historical costuming events, and historical sewing adjacent videos, please be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. I'll see you next time. Bye.